Hi, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
Well, we can start with whatever you want to talk about. We can start with the fact that you are the Poet Laureate of Louisiana. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So how has that been? When were you, is it inaugurated or when were you knighted?
Appointed.
Appointed.
I like knighted. Invested.
Yeah.
In last August.
Okay.
August, and it's a tremendous honor, of course. The choice is made by a big committee of academics and poets and people from the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities, and then they present a list of 3 ranked to the governor. So the governor has to appoint, and that's the way it works in most states. The governor has to appoint, but the governor, that's not who chooses. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So how has it been? What have you been doing so far as Poet Laureate, or what have been the most fun things that you've been doing that you enjoyed?
Well, the most fun thing of all was that a jazz guitar player in New Orleans decided he would write some jazz pieces to poems of mine. And I think he wouldn't have known me except for my being the Poet Laureate. He wrote 5 pieces, and he wrote my voice in, reading, like I was one of the instruments. And so, they would play, and then I would read, and they would play, and I would read. And I always wanted to be one of the boys in the band anyway. So here I was, one of the boys in the band. And you know how in jazz, somebody will go off on a riff and everyone will listen, and he plays by himself. And then when he's through, you clap a little bit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When the next person actually starts up, you're clapping a little bit for that person. Well, they clapped just like I was the, saxophone player. 2 lines, they go. Great. And it was an hour-long show.
That's great.
And we did it 5 different places, little jazz clubs in New Orleans. So that was kind of the most fun. But I really, eldest daughter, my last book came out about the same week as the appointment. And that was a big preoccupation because the poems in it I had written over about a 30-year period. I mean, I've written a lot of other things and published other books and so forth, but those were poems that came along for 30 or 35 years. They're very serious, and it's autobiographical. I mean, I hope you can't really tell it's autobiographical, but it is autobiographical, and so it was things I felt all my life I needed to say. I finally got them said, and I felt this huge preoccupation lift. And then I get appointed Poet Laureate. So I thought, I'm not one to believe someone has a plan for my life, like some people do. I don't even have a plan for my life, so I don't know how anybody in the sky would have a plan for my life. But I did kind of feel like, I think this coincidence means something. I think I'm supposed to really throw myself into it.
Yeah. And
so I did. And I've seen probably more than 1,000 children.
Wow.
And my main job forever was working for the Arts Council. I was artist in the schools. So I know how to teach every grade class. And then I've taught at LSU, and then I've taught privately adults, which is what I'm doing now. And so I can actually teach every age person. Yeah. So if someone calls me and said, will you come read? I say, yes, thank you very much. Get me some school classes. Because, usually like I'm driving across the state. Get me some school classes. So I'll get arranged around the reading, either another reading, a workshop for English teachers and how to teach poetry, some classes for kids in poetry writing. It's just been grand.
That's wonderful. So when you work with the kids, do you like to encourage them during that time to to experiment with writing poetry, or how do you usually approach those?
I actually have a little song and dance so that I can get them to write a poem while I'm there.
Cool.
At least they can write a class poem. You know, they can pitch in and write a class poem, which I can write down, scribble, and then I can read it back to them, and they always just love it. And I really think it's more important to teach kids to write poetry than it is to tell them they ought to go read a lot of it. And if they write enough, they're going to start reading poetry. But so many kids today don't have any place to say who they are. Mm-hmm. And so many kids I see are, they have horrible experiences. They have experiences you and I would have a hard time even imagining happening. And one kid I had was standing in his front yard with a friend, and he thought his friend's head had exploded, but actually his friend had been hit by a stray bullet in the head. So he's looking at the friend, and his head, there's a noise and his head explodes. And the teacher doesn't want him to say that, of course. That would disrupt the class for days. His teacher can't ask him to talk about that. If he talks about that, school is over for the day. Everybody in the class is so distracted, including the teacher.
Yeah.
Nobody at home asks him who he is. You know, stop and tell me who you are. And so with those kind of experiences, I think you begin to know and say who you are by writing down your experiences or talking out your experiences with people. But I give them a piece of paper and I say, this paper's not going to catch on fire. You can write anything on this piece of paper. And then they often do. And I don't say, tell me who you are. That would be the worst assignment in the world. But I give them some kind of assignment that sort of pieces them into it, and then they'll think of what it is they need to say, and then pretty soon they've written it down. And some of them will they'll read it, and then they'll just crumple up their piece of paper and put it, so I know that's the one that needed to write it down the most. I tell them ahead of time. They don't have to share.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of, I've done that for many years, but now I get to do it all over the place, and I'm kind of teaching teachers to do the same thing. So I feel like it's valuable.
Totally, very valuable. Yeah, how do you go about introducing poetry to people who maybe have never read a poem, or who think, oh, poetry, that's boring, or have a misconception, or aren't attracted to it?
Yeah, you read them a poem they're going to like. You read them something funny.
Yeah.
And, that sort of pulls them in. You have to be a good reader. You have to pay attention to how your delivery. But really, that person you describe is not going to be there in the first place. I don't know how you're going to get a crack at it.
Yeah. I just thought, maybe, I'm sure with your new position as poet laureate, you meet people who maybe wouldn't have been exposed to poetry otherwise.
It's so true. It is the most bizarre thing. People talk about ours being a celebrity culture. I have a little bit of an understanding of that now. It's just the strangest thing. I'm the same person, and people don't know what a poet laureate is, but they want to see one. They want to see the poet laureate. They've never said, I want to see a poet.
Yeah.
They want to see the poet laureate. So, yeah, I've had people come to readings just to see one. And so, yeah, you can kind of draw people in. I don't think I make poetry readers out of them, but I just the feeling that they know what it's about, and that you can write stuff down, and that you use everyday language. You don't write about beautiful English daisies and nightingales.
Right.
And I think poetry's been taught badly for a long time. Better now, but much better now. But it's been taught very badly, and I wouldn't like it myself if I hadn't started writing. Well, no, that's not true. But if I had been taught as badly as a lot of people are taught, I wouldn't like it either.
Yeah, no, I totally relate to that, and I think it's true that when you become a poetry writer, you have such an investment in it that it becomes fun. It's not associated with that stuffy old poetry that you don't want to read. It's real living things.
You have to read Milton, and then somebody makes you write a sonnet. Somebody makes you write a sonnet. I don't write a sonnet now.
It's so true.
Yeah, poor kid.
Yeah.